All right, there's 4 weeks until the NFL draft, and basically free agency around the NFL is slowed to an absolute crawl. Really nothing going on with the 49ers. They haven't signed anybody in a while, and even the players they have signed this offseason really can't be looked at as anybody who would have any impact on the way the 49ers would draft here in a month in late April. So this week, the NFL owners meetings begins, the NFL annual meeting. It's in Palm Beach, Florida. And there's usually some agent activity there. Teams are looking to maybe get a bargain or two on the free agent market, on the veteran market. But I would say mostly at this point, the reason things have slowed to a crawl is because it's kind of twofold. The teams don't want to make any unnecessary signings of players whose spot they might take once the draft begins. And conversely, it works both ways here for players, veteran players who might have some options. They would probably rather wait until after the draft to see what teams took what positions and then figure out from there where they might have the best opportunity. And for some players who've already made their money, maybe they're going to look at the spots where they believe they have the best chance of winning. Now, the 49ers, as I mentioned, haven't done much at all as far as bringing in starting caliber players. And there still are some players out there on the veteran market who can make an impact or make a difference for some teams. But I don't necessarily see that happening with the 49ers. The one spot would be on the defensive line where they could still find somebody that could come in and be part of a rotation. So right now, if you look at the 49ers defensive line, it's here would be the four starters: Nick Bosa, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and Yetur Gross-Matos. Those are the guys on the team under contract right now. And then if you go out four more spots to eight on the defensive line: Kalia Davis, Sam Okawanu, Robert Beal, and Evan Anderson. The 49ers need to be able to bring in more depth, more players, not necessarily depth, but more frontline guys who could be starters and just knock everybody down a peg. That's why I think with 11 draft picks, 49ers could easily get two defensive linemen, including a starter who steps in and just by bringing in someone who's better than some of the other guys, knocks a starter, a projected starter down to a backup role. So right now, when you look at it, looking at the defensive tackles who are still out there, I really don't see a guy who is a starter that they could sign. They could sign a rotational player for sure, but then when you look at defensive end, maybe a little bit more there. But even these guys aren't necessarily people I would expect to just, if the 49ers were to sign them, just come in and be a starter. Guys like Von Miller, he's getting up there in age. He had 6 sacks in 13 games last season for Buffalo. Clearly, his best days are behind him. Also, Zadarius Smith. Now, he did have 9 sacks last year combined with Cleveland and Detroit. He remains on the open market. Another guy is Dennis Gardeck. So those are the names we're talking about. Basically, at this point, all the really good players, all the guys who have a lot to offer, all the guys who have fresh legs, those guys are gone. So that's why when you look at this draft, and I wrote about this at NBC Sports Bay Area.com, four guys that the 49ers could conceivably take in the first round at defensive tackle. That's where they need help, along with a dynamic edge rusher. Actually, both, I mean, I guess flip a coin. Where's the 49ers' biggest need? Is it defensive tackle? Is it edge rusher? You could make a case for either one of those spots, but the four guys at defensive tackle that I mentioned, Mason Graham is one. I just remember when I started putting together these mock drafts at the end of the season, Mason Graham was seen as a top five pick, and he still very well might be a top five pick. But now I see him just kind of sinking down further and further closer to the 49ers. So he's an option. But then the other three guys I've mentioned, I see them going well beyond number 11. Guys like Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, and Derek Harmon, all guys who could conceivably fit the 49ers. Although with Grant, I know there's a lot of buzz, a lot of people in the comments section like Kenneth Grant. I just don't know. I mean, he's so big. He's more of a nose tackle. And with the 49ers wide nine, I think you need maybe more activity in the middle of that line just to be able to cover a little bit more space. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I'd love to hear your comments on this, but I don't know that Kenneth Grant is a great fit for what the 49ers do defensively. Yes, he's a space eater, but those guys on the interior, they have to cover some ground as well. So, those are some of the guys at defensive tackle where the 49ers could look to address. More than likely, they would still be in the mix for a defensive tackle with the second round or third round, whatever the case may be. But when you look at the veterans out there and the 49ers, the veteran free agents who are out there, 49ers really did not sign anybody who would make any impact on their draft this year. I guess you could make an argument that by getting Jason Pinnock, maybe he could be a starter. But I think the 49ers would also like to see how Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown come around. So as far as the safety position, the one guy who's been, who has a big name out there is Justin Simmons. But again, I don't think the 49ers would go that direction right now until after the draft. And same with Simmons. For instance, if the 49ers took a safety in the second round of this draft, then that would, I would think, kind of eliminate the possibility of any veteran safety wanting to come to the 49ers at this stage. Maybe later, once the 49ers see what they have in that guy. But I don't know that Justin Simmons would be a guy that they would look to before the draft. And the defensive ends that I mentioned, Miller, Smith, Gardeck, those guys would also, I think, wait until after the draft. One position would be wide receiver, but a lot of this would probably be contingent on what happens with Brandon Ayuk. If Tuesday comes and goes and Brandon Ayuk is still on the team, as I expect he will be, then I doubt the 49ers would go out there and try to add another veteran receiver in the line of Keenan Allen, who is still out there, Amari Cooper is still out there, as is Robert Woods. The 49ers did sign Demarcus Robinson from the Rams, and there still remains the possibility, maybe likely possibility, probability even, that he will be slapped with a 3-game suspension for the possible violation of the league's policy on substances of abuse. So Amari Cooper is interesting in the sense that a year ago, when the 49ers were talking to the Browns about a trade that would send Brandon Ayuk to Cleveland, the player that they wanted to get back or was lined up for them to receive was Amari Cooper. At the time, I remember the Browns denied that, and people with the 49ers weren't exactly happy with me that I reported the precise details of that. And meanwhile, with the Browns, they denied that Amari Cooper was out there, that they were working on a trade with him. And then a few weeks later, or a month later, or whatever it was, they sent him to the Buffalo Bills. The Browns traded Cooper to the Bills. So he's out there right now. And that would be somebody that, because the 49ers were interested in him a year ago, that could be a possibility, but probably only if the 49ers deal Brandon Ayuk. Again, I don't expect that to happen. But when you look at all those positions, wide receiver, safety, defensive tackle, defensive end, those are all spots that the 49ers very well could address in the draft, and that would impact if they go after any veteran from this point forward. The other position, of course, everybody likes to talk about the offensive line, and I just don't see the 49ers at this point adding any veteran offensive lineman that would impact in any way what they do in the draft. I don't think that they can get a starter in free agency. I think the placeholders that they have right now are guys that they're happy with, that they don't feel like there are any improvements out there among guys who are free agents right now. But where the improvements could come would be in the draft. And It could come at number 11 overall. I mean, I've talked about Armand Mimbu. There's Will Campbell, who, by the way, I was talking about his arm length at 32 and 5/8 inches, well below the very, very, very minimum threshold of 33 inches. This week at his pro day, his arms mysteriously grew 3/8 of an inch. So he checked in at 33 inches with the arm length, the very minimum of that. So he could be available there. And then the other guy I've talked about is Kelvin Banks. Not quite sure that the 49ers would go with him. Coming off a great, not a great season at Texas. And then, of course, the guy who looked really good early in the season, but then had the patellar injury. That's Justin Simmons. But more than likely, when you look at where the 49ers could improve or look to improve the offensive line, it would be at the interior offensive line positions. Some of the guys I mentioned on the video I posted yesterday, I believe it was, guys who are, look for who the guys are in the 10-yard split in the 40, not the 40-yard dash, but the 10-yard split, the three-cone drill, and the 20-yard shuttle. Those are the guys. And there are some individuals out there, whether a guard or the center, a Kendall from Boston College, there are some players that would fit there. And then with Aaron Banks leaving to the Packers, there is the opening at left guard right now. It could be Nick Zakelj. It could be Ben Barch. Could be Spencer Burford, but there will be at least one new starter on the 49ers offensive line this season. And then also there could be competition at center. And a lot of discussion about Jake Brendel. I still think that he's probably the leader when it comes to who's going to be the starter for this season, but he will have to hold off Matt Hennessy and Drake Nugent and maybe also a draft pick. So that is the rundown on where the 49ers are with the roster building, trying to mesh in the veteran free agents with the draft that's coming up in a month. I don't think the 49ers will do anything splashy from this point as far as the veteran market goes. They haven't yet. I wouldn't expect them to now. And more than likely, if they were to dip their toe back into the veteran free agent market, it would be after the draft to see what spots they wanted to fill in the draft, but couldn't. And then also the players out there, the veteran guys who will be looking around to see, where are my best opportunities, where are the best chance to contribute, play immediately, but also maybe where the best chance is to do some winning. And I don't know exactly where teams around, or I should say players around the league feel about where the 49ers are right now, coming off a 6-11 record and not doing much in free agency, seeing a lot more players leaving than coming. All right, so that's the rundown. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Love to hear what you have to say, and also a like. And that is it for now.